Hello, this is Andrine, a Jewish American priestess, and today I'm bringing you a reading using the Edutainment oracle cards from Kohenet Ketzirah, and we're going to be looking at the cards that recognize the Oreget, the Weaver, because this is we're winding down to the last of the month of Adar I, and we only get this month every few years, 7 times in every 19 years. So I want to do this reading right now in order to honor the Oreget for this last part of this month. So we have 4 cards. Each of these are one of the Oreget cards in the Netivot Wisdom Oracle that are representing the Weaver, the priestess pathway of the Weaver. And you get to choose one of these cards. I'm going to do 4 readings today with some Hebrunes as well when we get there. You're welcome to take a moment to choose a card right now if you like, whether face down, or you can wait until I flip them over, and that's up to you. Whatever calls to you right now. And I'll put the timestamps down below with card 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then we'll do some readings. So take a moment to feel into the cards and see which one calls to you. And now I'll turn them over, and if you want to see what they say, well, you can do it that way as well. So card number 1 is the Oreget Weaver that looks like this. We'll read from each of these cards in the book as we get there. Card number 2 is this Oreget card. Card number 3 is this Oreget card. And card number 4 is upside down, this Oreget card. So again, if you haven't already chosen, take a moment to determine which of these 4 Oreget cards is calling to you today, and I will see you in your separate readings. Welcome, card number 1. Let's take a closer look at your card here. So this card is specifically the Oreget card that represents offerings. And this is what it says in the book. Create expressions of prayer. Offerings of the Oreget are heartfelt creative prayer. Find ways to express your connection and interconnections through storytelling, ritual, art, dance, and poetry, cooking, as well as inherited practices such as tying tzitzit. Anything that blends disparate things together into a beautiful, spirit-filled creation is an offering of the Oreget. Going deeper, this altar is a weaving together of forgotten, inherited, and innovative practices. The stones are a forgotten practice created by Rav Kohenet Rabbi Jill Hammer. The talitot are inherited, and the altar is a combination of both. I think it's really interesting that here in the bottom you can see the letters on stones that created by Rabbi Jill Hammer. She's the one who taught the class in the Sefer Ketzirah that inspired me to create these Hebrunes. And we have a talit with tzitzit, which are the knots that are tied on strings like roots that reach down. So this card encourages you to create expressions of prayer. And I'm going to set that up here in this card holder, and we're going to stir up our Hebrunes and see what other reading we have today about this creativity of expressions of prayer and weaving together things for you in the world. I'm going to pull out 3 letters today. First letter is the letter He. Second letter is the letter Samech. And the third letter is the letter Resh. So starting at the top, we have the letter He. And the letter He is the letter that represents presence. He is the first letter of the word Hineni, which means here I am, and it is the answer that one gives to the divine when they hear their name called. It's also affiliated with the sense of sight in the version of the Sefer Ketzirah that I read. So it's a way of seeing forward. It's a way of being able to do what one needs to do, availability for service, artistry, action. It's very similar to this idea of creativity, being open to whatever it is the divine is trying to do through you, being able to listen and see your way forward. The letter He is also affiliated with the liver in the body, so it has to do with discerning what is useful and what needs to be discarded. Our bodies have a variety of filtration organs, and the liver is one of the largest. It is the largest organ in the body, and so it has this level of weight to it, gravitas. And the word in Hebrew for liver is keved, which is the same root as the word kavod, meaning glory and honor. So there is something about weaving together and glorifying the divine, as well as filtering out what is toxic in our bodies. This is what's coming up for right now. This ability to show up, be present, say, here I am, available and ready for service, whatever it is that the divine is asking of me right now, with expressions of prayer, however that might look, through song, cooking, altar building. Be available for service to the divine right now. And that is one of your weavings in these last days of Adar I, as we move into Adar II at the end of the weekend. Our second letter in the reading is the letter Samech. And Samech is in the position of this reading of what is a challenge or a fear in the situation. And we have this letter that means being surrounded. The word sovev begins with Samech, meaning to surround, and it is a circle. So it speaks to seasons and cycles and wheels, something changing over time. And so maybe there's a fear around the change that's coming. And even though we have 2 Adars this year, they transition through the darkness of the moon. And this reminds me of the full moon in the sky with its circular shape and the cycles of the moon as they wane and wax. And as we come into the darkness in the next few days, maybe there's some fear around the transition that's happening. And I also see Samech as representing boundaries in our life. How are we noticing and establishing good boundaries? Maybe there's a challenge around setting up good boundaries right now as we are moving through this time of not tying or untying knots. Samech in the Proto-Hebrew looked like a thorn, and it has that little tiny thorn in the upper left corner still. So setting up protections like a rose has thorns, not to injure but to protect. So boundaries are necessary here. Support, comfort, being surrounded by something protective right now. And that may be challenging as we are showing up for ourselves and showing up for the divine, saying, here I am. And our outcome letter in this particular reading is the Resh. And Resh has this connotation of beginnings because it is a head. It's the head in the body. Rosh means head. It's also Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Chodesh, the beginning of a new thing, the beginning of a new month is coming in. So we have this idea of beginning happening. This is the outcome. Given the current circumstances, something is going to begin. It is the binary transformation of seed and barrenness. So maybe a seed is being planted right now and we just don't know how it's going to turn out. It may produce fruit, it may not, but we still need to plant that seed. Because it is the head and the body, it also refers to the intellect. So thought may be needed and humility. This is a head that is bowed over a little bit, you can see. So as we go into this offering of creative expression, maybe we need to bow our heads a bit and find some humility as we move toward this new moon, this new month. Whatever the new beginning is, Reish is right there in the first word of Torah, Bereshit, in the beginning. So there's some newness coming in. And so for those of you who chose the creative expressions of prayer, of the Oreget, the offering of the Oreget, the one who weaves, we have this admonition to right now show up for yourself, show up for the divine, be here. Say, I am willing and ready to do whatever is being asked of me, whatever creative expression is being asked of me. That we need to set up good boundaries for ourselves in the Samech. Maybe protect ourselves with surrounding ourselves with divinity, surrounding ourselves with appropriate boundaries that are permeable, that allow in what is safe and allow out what is needing to go. And out of that will grow this new beginning, whatever it might be. Maybe it's just the new month of Adar II coming in, or maybe it's a whole new seed that's being planted right now for some new venture. That we'll use our head, but we'll bow our head a little bit too in humility as we know that the creation, the creative expression that's coming through us is from the divine. We don't get full of ourselves and feel like, oh, I made this all happen. To recognize that when we show up and say, here I am, Hineni, and surround ourselves with appropriate boundaries, that a new beginning will come in with our humility and our ability to look back toward the divine and say, this is what was created through me by divinity. So for those of you who chose the Oreget Weaver with creative expressions, this has been your reading for this closing of Adar I. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you may like and subscribe as you were led, and I will see you here next time. Chodesh Tov. Hello, card number 2. Those of you who chose this beautiful Oreget card. Let's take a closer look at it. I love this. It says at the top, connect the personal and the cosmic. And this particular card is the gift card. Each of these cards in the deck have an affiliation with one of 4 different offerings within that Netivot. The Oreget is the priestess pathway of the weaver, and this is the gift. Connect the personal and the cosmic. The gift of the Oreget is tzavta, the Aramaic for interconnection. We look at a spider web and are reminded of the web of life, but the spider creates it for practical needs. Cultivate the ability to craft reminders of our interdependence and interconnection from what is personal, food, shelter, beauty, etc. Going deeper, it says the hand seed on this card is mine, that's Kohenet Ketzirah, holding up a ball of yarn that would become the umbilical cord that was part of the central altar of Kohenet Hebrew Priestess Institute training weeks. So connecting the personal and the cosmic together is the gift of the weaver, the Oreget. We'll set that card up there, and we'll take a moment to pull out some Hebrunes to do a reading to further clarify our Oreget Weaver priestess pathway for you today. At the top we have the letter Het. In the center we have the letter Zayin. And at the bottom we have the letter Kaf. So the way I read these at the top, this is the position of what is going on right now for you. In the center is the position of the challenge or the fear of our situation, and the bottom is the outcome or advice of the given circumstances. So at the top we have the letter Chet. And the letter Chet is the letter that is the first letter of the word Chai, meaning life. It's also the first letter of the word Choshek, meaning darkness. So connecting the personal and the cosmic, also connecting life and darkness together. Choshek is the first word in Torah where Chet shows up. So it's a very important word. And darkness is sometimes seen as something negative, but it's an important part of life. It's an important part of the day. We have to have the darkness in order to see the morning, the dawn. So what I'm seeing this as connecting the personal and the cosmic is also connecting life and darkness and not separating those out as if they were polar opposites. They're not. They're all woven together. Chet is also the letter that speaks to contracts and covenants. It's the foundation of speech in the Sefer Yetzirah version that I read. And it looks a little bit like a marriage canopy, a chuppah. So it has this concept of connections, contracts, commitments, covenants that one might make with one another and with the divine as well, maybe even with oneself. It is the number 8 in Gematria, and so to that end it speaks to the infinity loop, this idea of the infinite, because 7 is the number of days of creation, and 1 plus 7 is the infinite. After creation, what's left? Everything else. So we have this right at the top, this idea of the infinite, the idea of life and darkness, the idea of contracts, commitments, and covenants, and speech as well. Using speech to create, perhaps, as we do, like the divine had done in the beginning. So, connecting the personal and the cosmic, how are you being called to use your voice to speak? How does darkness correspond to your life? How are you weaving together those seemingly opposed items? And what contracts and commitments have you made to connect the personal and the cosmic? In the center of our reading, we have the letter Zayin, and it's in the position of the challenge or the fear. Zayin is the letter that is a sword or a scepter. So it speaks to sovereignty, maybe personal sovereignty. Perhaps you're having some challenges owning your power, knowing that you have not just the ability, but maybe the admonition to be powerful. The Zayin is seen as magic. It's the number 7 in Gematria, so it does speak to that 7 days of creation. And the 7th day of creation is Shabbat, so there's a little bit of a connotation of rest here as well. And the Shabbat bride, the Shekhinah, the indwelling presence of the divine. So maybe you're having a challenge with resting. Maybe you're not getting adequate rest. The Zayin is the letter that speaks to the sovereignty of the Shekhinah, the indwelling presence of the divine. So again, in your own personal sovereignty, maybe there's a fear around owning your power. Maybe there's a fear around completing something. That 7 days of creation is the final day of creation. So maybe you're having trouble completing the thing the project that you're working on, or coming to rest, finding good rest that you need to get up and do what you're called to do in the world. The weaving, the connection of the personal and the cosmic here. To know that the divine dwells within you in the form of the Shekhinah, that's that spark within you, the magic that exists, that the divine is the one who gives you the sovereignty that you have in life. And our outcome letter is the letter Kaf. Kaf is said to be the palm of a hand, like so, or the sole of the foot even. It is the letter that speaks to giving and receiving. It's the binary transformation of wealth and poverty. So what is it you're giving that's appropriate but not overextending yourself? That if we can get through this time of finding our personal sovereignty, we'll be able to give appropriately and receive appropriately as well, because like this hand is reaching up with this ball of yarn, receiving it from the divine, giving it back to the divine, giving it to community, bringing it all together, weaving all these pieces together. That we too have that ability to discern what are we supposed to give, what are we supposed to receive, once we claim our own power, claim our inner sovereignty. The Kaf is the letter that rules over the sun in the sky. And so it has this affiliation with brightness, shining, but also protection, to protect, to shelter with the palm of the hand from something that might be life-giving, but also possibly harsh, because the sun can be a little much at times. It is also said to be the palm of the Shekhinah, lifting us up, both lifting us, supporting us, and protecting us from the heat of the sun. So it's interesting because we have the darkness here at the top, the life and darkness in the Chet, the sovereignty of the indwelling presence of the divine Shekhinah, and the hand of the Shekhinah supporting us and sheltering us from the sun, maybe giving us some shade, giving us some shadow so that we can see better. Sometimes the sun and the light can be too much. So how can we weave together the personal and the cosmic? How can we weave together the light and the darkness? How can we weave together the finality of creation and the infinite that comes after that? How can we weave together ourselves and the indwelling presence of the divine that gives us sovereignty? So right now, as you struggle with balancing life and darkness, and as you are trying to claim your own power in the situation, know that if you can embrace these two things as they come together again, that life and that darkness, those contracts that you've made with another, with yourself, with the divine, that once you get through that owning of your sovereignty, you will find yourself supported by the divine, sheltered by the divine, and more clear about the giving and receiving that you need to do, that you will come into your own power. Koach begins with Kaf, that you'll have that power. So you've got power in here twice. You've got the divine indwelling presence here twice. So it's both a struggle and an outcome, a promise that once you balance life and darkness in whatever way that you are able to connect those two things, that you will come into power, that you'll have the ability to know what is the next thing to do, what's the appropriate way to give and to receive. So for those of you who chose the Oreget gift of connecting personal and cosmic, this has been your reading for the last days of Adar I. I wish you a beautiful weekend and a wonderful waning of the moon, and we will see you here next time. If you liked this reading, please do like and subscribe if you are led to do so. Chodesh Tov. Hello, card number 3. Those of you who chose this card, the Bringing Community Together card, this particular version of the Oreget is the vessel. Each of these cards has a different take on the Netivot of the month. And Oreget is, of course, the weaver. And this is the vessel card, bringing community together. Let's read in the book what it says. Vessels of the Oreget are those who know how to create wholeness that respects individuality. They help us move from me to we without erasing the I. In them, we can find ourselves and our own challenges and triumphs in finding, making, and being in community. And going deeper, this card is dedicated to the 3 founders of the Kohenet Hebrew Priestess Institute, Jill Hammer Ye'ila, Tea Shir, that's Te'amah, and Shoshana Jedwab Bat Shemesh. This deck and I am who I am today, existing because of their dreaming, teaching, and weaving. That's from Kohenet Ketzirah. Vessel. So bringing community together. set this card up here, and we'll do a reading with the Hebrunes on this idea of bringing community together and how this is playing out right now for you who chose this card at these last days of Adar I. At the top, we have the letter Tav. In the center, we have the letter Gimel. And at the bottom, we have the letter Samech. So in these readings with the three letters, how I do it is the top letter is the letter that represents how things are now. The center letter is the challenges or fear in our situation. And the bottom letter is the advice or outcome of our situation right now. And we're talking about bringing community together. And we have at the top the letter Tav. Tav is the final letter of the alphabet. It's the letter that means completion. It's a stamp, a seal, or a signature. But with any ending, there's always a beginning. So it also has to do with reincarnation. It's like the final letter that goes back to the beginning in the same way that the 8 does in the this oracle, the Aleph Tav, the beginning and the end, and the beginning again. It is the binary transformation of sovereignty and slavery. So right now, something is coming to an end, and something is beginning again. There's a renewal cycle. Certainly the moon, and Tav is the letter that rules over the moon in the sky. So there is this cyclical idea here with the Tav. Something is coming to an end, something is beginning again. It may seem like things are over, that things have come to a signature seal stamp at the bottom of it, but know that newness is coming in as well. That we can't be enslaved to how things have been, that we need to embrace our sovereignty and move forward into the next right thing. And I say that in part because the Kohenet Hebrew Priestess Institute, leaders of whom are honored in this card, came to an end last summer, 2023, and something new is beginning. Different things are coming out of that. New seeds have been planted and new sprouts are coming up. So what's happening right now is an ending, and it may feel like the end of something huge, but know that new beginnings always grow from the detritus of the thing that fell apart, that things are composted and returned to the earth, and new growth comes from that. Yeah, just like the moon that cycles. Darkness and then light again. In the center, we have the letter Gimel. And again, this is the position of the challenge or the fear in our situation. And Gimel, interestingly, is a foot or a camel. It's about walking forward. So this very clearly to me says that even though something is coming to an end, we're having difficulty stepping forward, that it's important to move forward when things come to an end, but there may be some challenge around it. Gimel is also the binary transformation of peace and evil, and peace, which is in Hebrew shalom, really means wholeness. So a binary transformation of wholeness and brokenness. That maybe we're seeing the brokenness right now, but we're not seeing how it can come back together into a whole piece. Something is coming to an end. And I love that it's the number 3, and that we've got these 3 figures on the card as well. There's something stable about a tripod. There's 3 creation elements of fire, water, and air, and there's something creative and beautiful about that as well. But there's also the counterpart, which is the brokenness. And where do you exist on that continuum right now between what has been broken and what can be whole again? Gimel rules over the planet Jupiter in the sky, and Jupiter in Hebrew is tzedek, which means justice. What injustices have come, and how can we bring justice back? Maybe this is a struggle right now. Maybe that we're afraid. We're afraid of the brokenness and the injustice. And that's valid. It's totally valid. It's hard sometimes to see the wholeness of things. But we need to move forward, and we're stuck right now. I think this is what it's saying in the Gimel in the center here, is that there's a fear or challenge around stepping forward. And we just need to acknowledge that, sit with that. And the final letter in this reading is the letter Samech. And Samech is this letter it has the connotation of being surrounded. It's the first letter of the word Sovev, which means to surround. It's also the first letter of the word Smicha, which means to be ordained. And I bring that up again because the Kohenet Hebrew Priestess Institute ordained a lot of priestesses during their tenure. And so there's some sort of feeling of being surrounded with support and connection and community, bringing community together, the laying on of hands to impart knowledge. Sovev, being surrounded. And it's a circle. And so it speaks to cycles and seasons, and that cycle of the moon. It looks like the full moon up in the sky, and the dark of the moon too. But in the old Paleo Proto-Hebrew, the Samech looked like a thorn. And so it has this little thorny corner up in the top there, you can see. And so there's something that's agitating. It is a foundation of agitation in Rabbi Hammer's Sefer Yetzirah. So something is agitating and irritating, coming maybe, or we're being advised to set up good thorny boundaries around ourselves, to surround ourselves with love and protection, and to know that the cycles and seasons turn, that wheels turn, that the moon comes and the moon goes. So the way I'm seeing this reading for bringing community together, we have this idea of something coming to an end, some kind of, maybe some community issue or a relationship or a larger relationship that has come to a completion and a closure. And we need to let that happen so that newness can begin again. These cycles and circles, this moon symbol, this Tav, which is the moon in the sky, that maybe there's a little fear about stepping out right now. And maybe it's not time. We don't know. The Samech is also the number 60 in Gematria, so it has that idea of the clock, the 60 minutes in a clock, and also the 60 minutes in a circle, those 60 seconds in a minute. Time, cycles and seasons. That regardless of what has come before and what's coming next, we can trust in the idea that if we set up good boundaries, we will be surrounded with protection, we'll be surrounded with love, and information will be imparted to us so that we'll know the next thing to do. That when things come to an end, even if there's fear around stepping forward, we know that we can be protected, even if there's agitation and irritation in it, even if there's thorns that are required to protect ourselves. We can make these permeable boundaries to allow in what needs to come in and allow out what needs to leave, whatever's come to an end. So for those of you who chose the Bringing Community Together card, the vessels of the Oreget, the Weaver, this has been your reading for these last days of Adar, Adar I, as we move into Adar II, coming up next week. I wish you a beautiful weekend, Shabbat Shalom, and Chodesh Tov. If you like this reading, you may like and subscribe as you see led. And I will see you here next time. Hello, card number 4. Those of you who chose this beautiful card, the Oreget Ally card. And each of these Netivot cards have one of 4 different symbols or expressions. And this one, which is the Weaver bird, has the Ally affiliation. It says, weaving houses of holiness. Allies of the Oreget are nest-building birds, especially members of Plosiidae family that weave intricate nests not only for themselves, but often for their whole communities. These birds weave and tie materials together to create functional, beautiful, communal structures. These allies embody divinely inspired creativity, craft, and artisanship that beautify, enrich, and support individual and communal experiences. Weave houses of holiness. the Oreget Ally. Beautiful card. I'm going to set that up there, and then we're going to take the Hebrunes and shuffle them up and give you a little letter reading as well to further illuminate your card. At the top of your reading, you have the Ein Sof. I love that. In the center, we have the Yud. And at the bottom, we have the Gimel. And the way that I read a 3-letter reading in this fashion is at the top is what's happening right now. In the center, what's our fear or challenge. And at the bottom, what is our outcome or advice for the situation. At the top, you have the Ein Sof. The Ein Sof, the letter that is no letter. It's a blank. It has nothing on it, and yet it has everything on it, right? It's the unending, it's the void, the tohu vavohu, the tahom, the deep, the primordial chaos, and the boundlessness of the divine. It represents the infinite, that which was before creation and that which will come after all of matter, time, and existence is done. Everything was fashioned from the one and carved into the primordial material, which was also made up of the one. And so it has this feeling of the infinite, this beautiful, not just oneness, but like allness that is greater than everything. And this idea of weaving houses of holiness, the weaving needs to have some place to exist. It is said that the divine, when they created the universe, contracted themselves down into one point and then exploded out from there into everythingness. Because there was not space. And this idea of tzimtzum, she who makes space, is the one who is the same way, weaving a home, weaving a house, having to contract herself in order to make space. And this is the space. This is the place. Where we are right now is we have the place, the empty space, the room to build those houses, to weave those houses of holiness. And we have all the materials as well, but with all the materials but no place to build it, how can we build that home? The holiness is everywhere. And right now, in this reading, you have the space. You have the material. You have the substrate, the empty lot onto which to build the house of holiness that you are called to build. And in the center of the reading, we have the Yud. And the Yud is that one point. It's the seed. It's that one place down into which the divine contracted themselves in order to create all. It's that tiny jot. That is the first letter of the divine name. That one point, the seed, the atom. And it's the first letter of the word yad, meaning hand. So it has to do with creation. And it's the foundation of sexuality. So like a sperm as well. So a seed. And this is the position of what's a fear or a challenge right now. Maybe the fear or the challenge is just planting the seed. How do we even start? Maybe tapping into your own sexuality. Getting to know yourself. Maybe there's a fear or challenge around that. This is the number 10 in Gematria, and 10 is that number 1 with a 0 next to it, and here's our 0. So it's the oneness of the divine multiplied times 10. So it's got this huge potential within it, although it's the smallest of all the letters. So it's infinite potential. It's like a beginning of a new thing, a seed, or the fool stepping forward into the universe, the beginning of creation. The contraction before the expansion. And maybe we don't want to contract ourselves. Maybe we just want to be one with everything. And I get that. But a seed needs to be planted in order for growth to happen. And the ground is ready. So that's the Yud in the center. And then our outcome or advice in our situation is the letter Gimel. The letter Gimel, which is a foot or a camel. And it's about forward movement. The Gimel is saying step forward. Step forward toward justice. Walk forward to the direction of that which is right and holy, sacred. The Gimel rules over the planet Jupiter in the sky, and Jupiter is the word tzedek in Hebrew, tzedek meaning justice. So stepping forward toward justice is inherent in the letter itself. It's the binary transformation of peace and evil, shalom, which is peace but also wholeness. So moving toward rebuilding or creating justice, or tikkun olam, which is the repair of the brokenness, the repair of the world. That's what we're being called to do here. And it's running, it's quick movement. It's not just a slow, casual sauntering. It's running toward justice. Really getting down to business, creating. So for those who chose the weaving houses of holiness with your weaver bird here, we have this space to build. We have the space to build the house. We found the branch on which to hang our nest. The divine has provided us with infinite possibility here. There's a fear or challenge around starting. There's a fear or challenge around starting that first seed, by planting that seed. There's a little bit of a concern. Maybe even in connection with the divine. Maybe we're not feeling connected to becoming what the divine wants us to be. That's okay. We can honor that. Sit with those feelings. But our advice and our outcome in the situation is to step forward, to run forward, to find a way toward creating that which is righteous and just in the world, to repair the brokenness. For community, perhaps, weave houses of holiness, weave something sacred. So for those of you who chose the ally of the weaver bird, this has been your reading for these last days of Adar I, as we move into the darkness of the moon and into the new month of Adar II, coming up next week. I wish you a beautiful Shabbat, Shalom, and also Chodesh Tov. If you liked this reading, please like and subscribe as you feel led to do so, and I will look forward to seeing you here next time. Chodesh Tov.